Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you follow global affairs, the Middle East, or international security, this is one of those stories that shows how domestic issues and global politics often collide. Iran says it has neutralized a foreign intelligence threat. Protesters say their voices are being ignored, and the world is watching closely to see what happens next. Over the past several weeks, Iran has been experiencing one of its most intense periods of public unrest in years. What began as demonstrations over economic pressure, rising prices, unemployment, and inflation has gradually turned into broader protests questioning governance, accountability, and the future direction of the country. In many cities, people took to the streets expressing frustration over daily hardships, while others voiced political demands that go far beyond economic reform. As the protests spread from one city to another, the Iranian government responded with increased security presence, restrictions on movement, and limits on communication. Internet slowdowns and temporary shutdowns were reported, making it difficult for information to flow freely inside and outside the country. Despite this, videos and eyewitness accounts continue to circulate, showing crowds, chants, and clashes between protesters and security forces. In this tense environment, Iranian authorities made a dramatic announcement. The intelligence arm of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps stated that a foreign national accused of spying for Israel had been arrested. Officials claimed the individual was operating covertly and was involved in activities aimed at undermining national security. This announcement was presented as evidence that foreign actors were exploiting unrest inside the country. From the government's perspective, the arrest fits into a familiar narrative. Iranian leaders have often argued that protests and dissent are not purely homegrown, but are encouraged, supported, or even orchestrated by foreign powers seeking to weaken the state. In official statements, Israel and the United States are frequently named as key adversaries accused of interference, cyber operations, propaganda, and intelligence activities. The timing of the arrest is especially important. By announcing the capture of an alleged Israeli spy while protests are ongoing, authorities reinforce the message that unrest is being manipulated from abroad. This framing allows the government to present itself as defending national sovereignty rather than suppressing domestic dissent. It also shifts attention away from protesters' grievances and toward external threats. However, many analysts argue that the protests are driven primarily by internal issues. Years of economic sanctions, currency devaluation, unemployment, and rising living costs have placed enormous pressure on ordinary Iranians. For many families, daily life has become a struggle, and frustration has been building for a long time. When protests erupted, they reflected these deep-rooted problems rather than a single triggering event. Human rights organizations and independent observers report that the government response to the protests has been firm, and in some cases, harsh. Security forces have been deployed across major cities, arrests have been made, and warnings have been issued about severe consequences for those accused of disrupting public order or threatening national security. The judiciary has emphasized that it will not show leniency toward what it describes as violent or foreign-backed actions. At the same time, the government claims that the situation is now under control. Officials say calm has returned to many areas, that security has been restored, and that daily life is gradually resuming. State media has broadcast images of normal activity, open shops, and reduced street gatherings, presenting an image of stability and order. Yet, outside Iran, questions remain. How widespread are the protests now? Are they truly fading? Or have they simply gone underground due to fear of arrest and repression? And how credible are the allegations surrounding the alleged spy? Details about the arrested individual are limited. Iranian authorities have not released full information about the person's identity, nationality, or specific actions. Claims about links to Israeli intelligence have been made, but independent verification is extremely difficult, especially given the restrictions on media access and communication inside Iran. Israel, for its part, has not publicly commented on the case, following its usual policy of ambiguity regarding intelligence operations. This lack of transparency fuels skepticism among critics, who argue that espionage accusations are sometimes used to justify crackdowns and discredit protest movements. Supporters of the government, on the other hand, see the arrest as proof that Iran is under constant threat from hostile intelligence agencies, and that vigilance is necessary to protect national security. The broader context cannot be ignored. Iran and Israel have been adversaries for decades, locked in a shadow conflict involving cyber attacks, covert operations, regional proxy conflicts, and intelligence warfare. Accusations of spying are not new, and both sides have in the past claimed successes against each other's intelligence networks. In this environment, any arrest labeled as espionage carries heavy political weight. International reactions to the situation have been cautious but concerned. Western governments have called for restraint, respect for human rights, and transparency. They have urged Iranian authorities to allow peaceful expression and to avoid excessive force. At the same time, they are closely monitoring claims of espionage, aware that such accusations can escalate tensions if not handled carefully. For ordinary Iranians, the situation is deeply personal. Families worry about loved ones who may have been detained. Workers worry about jobs and rising prices. Students worry about their future. In moments like this, large political narratives often overshadow individual lives, but it is those lives that are most directly affected by unrest and repression. Another important aspect of this story is information control. When internet access is restricted and media outlets are tightly regulated, it becomes harder for the outside world to understand what is really happening on the ground. This creates an environment where official statements dominate and alternative perspectives struggle to be heard. It also fuels rumors, speculation, and misinformation. Despite claims that the situation is under control, history shows that underlying grievances do not disappear overnight. Even if protests subside temporarily, economic pressures and social tensions remain. Whether the government chooses reform, repression, or a combination of both will shape Iran's trajectory in the months and years ahead. The arrest of an alleged Israeli spy may strengthen the government's security narrative, but it does not answer the fundamental questions raised by protesters. Issues like inflation, unemployment, corruption, and political participation continue to weigh heavily on society. Addressing these challenges requires more than arrests and declarations of control. From a regional perspective, the situation adds another layer of uncertainty to an already volatile Middle East. Any escalation between Iran and Israel, even at the level of rhetoric or covert accusations, can have ripple effects across the region. Allies, rivals, and neighboring countries are all paying close attention. As viewers, it's important to approach stories like this critically. Official statements, opposition claims, and international commentary all come with their own perspectives and agendas. The truth often lies somewhere in between, shaped by incomplete information and competing narratives. What is clear is that Iran is at a sensitive moment. The combination of internal unrest and external pressure creates a challenging environment for decision makers and citizens alike. How authorities handle dissent how they communicate with the public, and how they engage with the international community will all influence what happens next. For now, Iranian officials say the protests are under control and a foreign spy has been caught. Protesters and activists say the struggle continues beneath the surface. The international community watches, waiting for clearer signals about stability, reform, or further confrontation. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and thank you for staying with us through this in-depth report. This is one of those stories that reminds us how closely domestic issues and global politics are connected. If you found this analysis useful, make sure to like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel for more updates on major world events. As this situation develops, we will continue to follow it closely and bring you updates based on verified information and careful analysis. Until then, stay informed, stay thoughtful, and we'll see you in the next video.